Hello, my name is Leticia Arias. I am a student at Capstone University, and this is my Capstone project, a PowerPoint presentation on mass shootings and domestic terrorism. My topic or educational problem is comparing mass shootings and lone shooters to domestic terrorism or terrorists, as well as their motivations and backgrounds. The mass shootings, I will be talking about three domestic terrorism events. The first mass shooting is the San Bernardino shooting, which occurred on December 2nd, 2015, which killed 13 and injured 21 others. The ones responsible were Tashin Malik and Syed Rizwan Farouk, which were a married couple. They were said to be radicalized before they met and had made contact with ISIS prior to the attack, who ISIS later claimed that two of their supporters were responsible. The second mass shooting is the Orlando, Florida Pulse nightclub shooting, which was on June 12, 2016, that killed 49 and wounded more than 53 others. This shooting was led by Omar Mateen, who made several calls to the police during the shooting, declaring allegiance to ISIS. This is one of the events that can have many motivations, such as the ISIS motivation, the extremist beliefs, and a hate crime against the LGBT community as well. Okay, the next one is the Aurora movie theater shooting, which occurred on July 19, killing 12 and injuring over 70 others. This shooting was led by James Holmes, and it happened on the Dark Knight Rises midnight showing. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity. The domestic terrorism events. The first one is the Boston Marathon bombing, which was led by the Tsarnaev brothers on April 15, 2003 at the 111th Boston Marathon. One of the brothers was injured badly during a crossfire with the police and died in the hospital. The other one was captured and found guilty of 30 federal charges and is eligible for the death penalty. Their motivation was extremist Islamic beliefs. The Charleston church shooting was conducted by Dylan Roof on June 17, 2015, which killed 9 and injured several others. It happened at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, and he was arrested at a traffic stop about 14 hours later. His motivation was a hate crime and extremist beliefs. Okay, the third domestic terrorism event is the Charlottesville hit and run at a Unite the Rally that was to protest the removal of a statue of the federal icon, Robert E. Lee. This was led by James Alex Fields Jr., who rammed his car against white nationalists who were protesting. In this event, one woman was killed and others were injured and hospitalized as well. He is being charged with second-degree murder, 3 counts of malicious wounding, and a hit-and-run count. The Senate and the House of Representatives of the U.S. declared this a domestic terrorism event. During my capstone, we were asked to do a literature review. Some of my key findings were that we needed credible sources, peer-reviewed sources. We needed to summarize and find only relevant information, meaning only information that was related to our topic. We needed to find information that was not older than 10 years. The author on the information that we found had to be credible and had to come from credible sources such as sites and books. Other key findings were that this topic had to be really important to you. You had to like what you were talking about. You had to feel passionate about what you were trying to shed light on, as well as try to solve it. and you had to ask yourself why you chose this topic. During the Capstone project, we were also instructed to do several procedures. Some of these were to propose and obtain approval for our topic. We were also asked to do a literature review and find credible sources, as well as summarize our sources in the literature review. We were asked to make a plan and stick to it as much as possible, which would be guiding us through this whole project. We had to stay on track and on top of our project as well. We couldn't sway off the topic. We had to research our topic. We also had to do weekly journals about our victories, struggles, and how we overcame those victories, as well as any ideas as to how you would solve the project. We had to reassure ourselves why we chose the topic and why it was really important to us, as well as brainstorm solutions. Some of the discoveries in the investigation process was that some of these events can overlap in many ways. An example of an event that can overlap is the Pulse nightclub shooting, which can be classified as a hate crime against the LGBT community. It has religious and extremist beliefs and connections to ISIS, and it is also classified as a mass shooting. A lot of these events have similar motivations, such as religion, hate crime, extremist beliefs, psychological and mental problems. Other discoveries were that several of these subjects had domestic violence backgrounds previous to the events they committed, and this was mass shooters and domestic terrorists that were previously charged with domestic violence either to ex-wives or to their one of their family members. Some of the differences that I found, the main one was that there was hardly any difference between shooters and terrorists as far as their motivations. However, some lone shooters are more vocal about their plans, meaning that they tend to tell a third party what they plan to do or what they're thinking of doing, and this can be a prevention method if we're really listening, as opposed to domestic terrorism, terrorists who are not as vocal. Another theory that is speculated is that domestic terrorism and terrorists are more dangerous than mass shootings and shooters, which is classified as a difference. However, I don't agree as much due to the fact that I think they're both equally as important. Domestic terrorists usually attack more of authority figures such as the government, and mass shooters either attack people or a person that either they're angry at or they want to get revenge. But however, like I mentioned, I do think that they're both equally as important, and they both need light shed on them. Another discovery that I found interesting was that there is no exact charge for domestic terrorism. However, each state has laws to charge it as closely as possible, but there is no charge, or somebody can't be charged specifically for domestic terrorism. Another interesting thing is that there are several definitions for domestic terrorism and mass shooters, just depending on what law enforcement agency you're talking about. However, I do believe that a universal definition is needed, or an exact definition required to label, classify, and charge these crimes for what they really are. More discoveries are that further investigation is required, such as evaluate more events and subjects to see what their differences are and what their similarities are, as well as motivations, background. Another discovery is that they are becoming more and more frequent. During this Capstone project, several events occurred, several mass shootings, such as the Las Vegas shooting and the Texas church shooting, which just means that they're occurring more and more frequent, which means that detection and prevention is necessary. Some of the solutions for this problem are that stricter gun control laws might be needed. What I mean by that is that in-depth evaluations, such as background checks, before issuing guns, can find a connection to a threat. Meaning, if somebody, when they run their background check, if somebody has a connection to any threat against the country, or has some sort of mental illness or problem, anger problem, then they can regulate who they issue a gun to, which can potentially prevent some of these crimes. I understand that some of these guns from several of these subjects were obtained legally, as well as they had some of their friends obtained them for them. So there's different ways around gun control laws, but I think that it would potentially help to have stricter or more screening for those applying for guns. The next one is training law enforcement personnel to detect suspicious behavior, meaning that they can do a way of a profile that law enforcement can use as a guide to detect warning signs, since they cannot have profilers out there with them, such as on in the field, on traffic stops, but they can detect suspicious behavior themselves, which can also prevent letting some of these subjects go, and to investigate further if they seem suspicious to the law enforcement officer. Another potential solution can be that these subjects get treatment versus prison, depending on their motivation. I'm not saying that these subjects should not be punished for what they do, but a lot of these act of anger or act of mental illness or any other motivation that can possibly be treated, instead of that sending people to prison and they're not getting the actual help that they really need. However, I do understand that this is a really controversial topic, considering that a lot of people just want to see them punished. Those were some of the ideas. Obviously, there's several other solutions that can be brought forth to help this solution, and I hope that this presentation helps shed some light on these terrible events that have been occurring in our country and all over the world. And these are my references, and thank you for watching and listening.